The chamber of the Galactic Council was vast beyond measure, an amphitheater of stone and light that floated above the heart of a star. Countless species filled the tiers, their voices rising in layered echoes that hummed like the pulse of the cosmos itself. Some spoke in tones like cracking glass, others in whispers of wind, others in low growls that made the floor vibrate. It was a chorus of civilization, the collective will of the galaxy embodied in one room, and at its center, beneath the blinding glare of 1,000 stars projected in holographic brilliance, stood the accused, humanity. The human delegation was small, too small. Only 6 stood there, dressed not in the elegant silks of the Empress, nor the jeweled shells of the Varkon, nor the flowing water veils of the Thoresh. Humanity's envoys wore plain black, as if in mourning. Their faces were pale, stern, weathered by the weight of history. They were not diplomats of grandeur, they were survivors, and survival clung to them like a second skin. High Chancellor Arveth of the Council raised his many-eyed gaze and spoke in a voice amplified through the chamber. Species of soul, humanity, you stand accused of endangering the galactic order. Your wars, your inventions, your unyielding hunger for more, they unsettle the fragile balance we have built across 10,000 years. Murmurs rippled through. The tears! They say you are unpredictable! Hissed a serpentine delegate, its forked tongue lashing the air. They say you are dangerous, rumbled a scaled colossus with arms like tree trunks. They say you are too human, whispered another, as though the very word carried poison. The chief human envoy, a woman named Mara Valen, raised her chin. Her voice was calm, but iron lay beneath it. Dangerous? Unpredictable? We are guilty of surviving. We are guilty of rising when beaten, of fighting when cornered. Is that what terrifies you, Chancellor? That we refuse to kneel? The chamber erupted in uproar. Hisses, growls, and chittering clicks. Lights pulsed in agitation across the vaulted ceiling. The Chancellor's voice cut through like a blade. Enough. The verdict has been cast. By a vote of 612 worlds to 8, the motion stands. Earth and her colonies are hereby exiled. From this day forth, no human may trade under galactic law. No human may claim the protection of the Council. No human shall sit among us. A silence fell, sharp and suffocating. Exile. The word struck like a hammer. To lesser species, it was death. No access to interstellar markets, no fleets to shield them from predators, no allies to stand beside them. It was a sentence meant to bleed Earth slowly, to turn humanity into dust scattered among the stars. The humans did not bow. Mara Valen met the stares of hundreds of alien eyes and spoke with a voice that carried through the silence. You believe you have cast us into darkness, but you have only freed us. No longer bound by your chains, humanity will forge its own path. You will see us again, not as outcasts, but as something greater than you dared imagine. And with that, the human delegation turned their backs and walked out. The news swept across the galaxy like wildfire. Worlds celebrated. The humans, that troublesome, quarrelsome species, were gone. No more would their fleets challenge borders. No more would their merchants outbid competitors. No more would their strange, stubborn resilience unsettle the elder powers. On Earth, however, the announcement fell heavy. Billions watched as their leaders returned home. In the vast council dome in Geneva, the people gathered, restless and afraid. Would food shortages come? Would colonies collapse without trade? Would warlords descend upon them, seeing weakness? Mara Valen stood before them, broadcast across every screen, every ship, every outpost. The galaxy has cast us aside, she said. They believed exile would break us. But I tell you this, humanity does not break. We endure, we adapt, and when The stars themselves deny us. We carve our own way through the dark. A roar erupted from the crowd, not of despair, but of something older. A fire, long buried, now set alight. Weeks turned into months. The first consequences struck swiftly. Alien trade routes closed, fuel shipments halted, medical technologies withheld, colonies cried out for relief, ships returned empty-handed, denied docking rights. Yet humanity did not crumble. Old industries roared back to life, dormant factories sparking with new purpose. Scientists turned desperation into discovery. Farmers in the colonies bred crops tough enough to grow in hostile soils. Engineers found ways to recycle fuels, to stretch resources beyond their natural limits. But more than survival, something else began to bloom. Unity. For centuries, humanity had fought itself as fiercely as any external foe. Borders, rivalries, ideologies, all had splintered them. But exile changed that. For the first time, humanity saw itself not as fractured nations, but as one people, bound by a common fate. Across the solar system, banners were raised not of countries, but of Earth itself. A single emblem spread, a blue sphere, ringed in silver, stars, the mark of those who would no longer bow to a council that had rejected them. And in the shadows, behind the speeches and the rebuilding, another voice rose. A voice carried not through words, but through the steady thrum of engines, the spark of welding torches, the designs scribbled on blueprints. Humanity was building, not just to endure, but to rise. On the 10th month after exile, in a cavernous hangar beneath the Martian cliffs, Mara Valen walked among towering frames of steel and alloy. Engineers and soldiers alike moved with grim focus. She looked upon the half-constructed hull of a warship, unlike anything the Council had permitted humans to build before. Its spine was long, angular, bristling with weapons designed not for show, but for survival. Its core burned with a new kind of engine, faster, hungrier, unshackled by treaties. "Exile is not the end," she whispered. "It is our beginning." Outside, through the dome, Mars's red horizon glowed. Ships rose into the sky, old freighters reforged into carriers, shuttles stripped and rebuilt into fighters. Humanity's exile was being transformed into a crucible. And in that crucible, something new was being forged, something the galaxy had feared all along. And so the first year closed. The Council believed humanity was isolated, cornered, finished. But on the edge of Sul, where the cold light of distant stars fell upon steel and determination, Earth's people had begun their true work. They were exiles no longer. They were pioneers. They were forging their own path. And the galaxy, blind in its arrogance, had no idea what was coming. The first winter after exile was brutal. Supplies dwindled, trade routes remained sealed, and entire colonies teetered on collapse. On Europa, hydromines shut down, leaving millions in cold and darkness. On Titan, hunger riots spread as shipments from alien partners never arrived. And on Earth itself, old fractures threatened to reappear, nations whispering blame, politicians pointing fingers. But desperation has always been humanity's greatest forge. The crisis became the spark that burned away old divisions. Nations that had once been rivals were now bound by necessity. No single power could stand alone against the weight of exile. A new council formed, not of the galaxy, but of humanity itself. Representatives from Earth, Mars, Luna, Titan, Europa, and the scattered colonies convened in a great chamber carved into the rock beneath the Himalayas. It was called the Soul Assembly, and for the first time in history, every human voice carried equal weight. Mara Valen stood at its heart, the same envoy who had faced the Galactic Council. She was no longer a diplomat begging for acceptance. She was a leader shaping survival. Exile is not an end, she declared before billions watching. It is our crucible. The galaxy has cast us out to wither, but instead we will grow sharper, stronger, and unyielding. No longer will we be dependent on their trade, their technology, their mercy. We will build our own future, one that no council can deny. The roar that answered her echoed from Earth's cities to the frozen domes of Europa. The years that followed were not kind, but they were transformative. On Mars, shipyards multiplied, their scaffolds rising like forests of steel. Vessels once, designed for freight, were reforged into warships. Old human ingenuity, long restrained by alien treaties, now unleashed itself with fury. Engines were pushed beyond limits, weapons designed with brutal efficiency. Where alien ships were elegant and ceremonial, human ships were angular, armored, and merciless. On Earth, industries reborn from scarcity created breakthroughs. Fusion drives were compacted, allowing ships to leap faster between stars. Artificial intelligence, long restricted by the Council's laws, was fused with human creativity, creating a new kind of mind, not slave to algorithms, nor master of its makers, but partner. These AI systems became the heartbeat of human fleets, whispering tactical insights, guiding construction, and learning as they grew. On Titan and Europa, entire generations grew up in hardship, but their resilience became legend. Children learned engineering before they learned writing, programming before arithmetic. Colonies that once depended on alien imports now stood on their own, fierce and proud. Humanity was no longer surviving. It was evolving. But word cannot be silenced forever. 3 years after Exile, the first whispers reached the Galactic Council. Smugglers spoke of human ships prowling further and further from Sol. Refugees told of colonies expanding, not collapsing. A merchant captain swore she had seen a massive vessel slip through the dark, a warship unlike any design in the registries. The council dismissed it as rumor. Exile weakens, they insisted. Humans cannot stand alone, but beneath the surface, unease grew. The elders of the galaxy had seen this pattern before, in other species long crushed. Yet none had adapted as quickly as humanity. The truth was revealed by accident. A Vayari scout ship, patrolling the unclaimed reaches near Sol, stumbled upon something it was never meant to see. A fleet, human in origin, but unlike any the galaxy had ever recorded. They hung above the barren rocks of a dead system, colossal vessels bristling with weapons, carriers with launch bays glowing blue, frigates sleek and fast as predators. The scout ship watched in silence as squadrons of fighters swarmed in formation drills, their engines burning like fireflies in the dark, and at the center of it all, a Leviathan, the flagship Odyssey, its hull stretched for kilometers, plated, in black alloy that drank the starlight. Its engines flared with a deep blue radiance, fueled by a drive no alien had ever seen. Its name blazed across the side, a declaration to the stars. Humanity endures. The Vayari scout fled, but not before sending its recordings. When those images reached the council chambers, silence fell. The projections showed a fleet that should not exist. By all logic, by all expectation, Exile should have left humanity broken. Yet here they were, not just alive, but ascendant. The Chancellor who had declared exile years ago could only whisper one word: impossible. But for humanity, this was only the beginning. The Sol Assembly had decided long ago they would not crawl back to beg for re-entry. The Council's betrayal had burned that bridge to ash. Humanity's destiny was no longer tied to a seat in some alien hall. Their future lay beyond, into the uncharted void, into the forgotten ruins of long-dead empires, into the stars themselves. Exploration fleets surged outward, armed not only with weapons but with determination. They discovered derelict stations abandoned millennia ago, stripped them bare, rebuilt them into human strongholds. They found star systems no map had dared mark and claimed them as their own. Everywhere they went, they left a mark, not of conquest, but of independence. Worlds that would never again kneel. And as humanity's influence spread quietly into the dark, so too did its legend. Alien traders whispered in fear and awe. The exiles thrive. They build ships like none we've seen. They do, not bow. Mara Velan, now older, stood on the bridge of the Odyssey as it slipped beyond the edge of known space. Through the viewport stretched a sea of stars, uncounted, unclaimed, waiting. Once we were outcasts, she said quietly to her crew. Now we are something else. We are the children of exile. We are the architects of our own fate. The crew answered with silence, not of fear but of reverence. The galaxy had cast humanity aside, believing it had doomed them. But in truth, it had done the opposite. By cutting them off, it had freed them. By condemning them, it had hardened them. And now, the galaxy would have to reckon with what it had created, for humanity had been forged in exile, and soon it would return, not in chains, but in power. The Galactic Council chamber had not changed. Its tiers still spiraled high, filled with alien dignitaries cloaked in splendor. Its vaulted ceiling still shimmered with projections of the stars, a reminder of the order they claimed to govern. The Chancellor still presided at the center, his many eyes heavy with pride. But this time the air carried something else: fear. For 3 weeks now, the galaxy had been buzzing with one name: humanity. The exiles had returned to known space, not as broken refugees, but as a power unto themselves. Outposts along the border had reported fleets moving in eerie silence. Patrols vanished, stations surrendered without a fight. The stories spread faster than truth could chase them, and then, one by one, the envoys of lesser worlds began to ask a question that chilled the halls of power. Had the Council made a mistake? Now, at the heart of that chamber, the question was about to be answered. The great doors opened with a thunderous echo. They entered not as beggars, but as conquerors. The human delegation walked in formation, flanked by armored guards whose black visors gleamed like obsidian. Behind them, towering screens flickered with live transmissions, the approach of a fleet. The Council saw it, vast ships blotting out. The stars above their homeworld, engines burning with unearthly blue fire. Humanity had not come alone. Mara Velan was older now, her hair streaked with silver, her face carved with the weight of years. But her presence filled the chamber more than any alien sovereign. Her voice, when it rose, needed no amplification. Years ago, you cast us into exile. You believed you had broken us. Instead, you freed us. And while you feasted in your palaces, we built in the dark. While you scorned us, we carved a path through the void. While you called us dangerous, we became stronger than you ever imagined. The chamber murmured with unease. Some hissed in anger, others trembled in silence. Velan's gaze swept the tears. You speak of order, but your order is built on fear. You feared what we might become, and you were right. For now we are more than human. We are a people tempered by exile, united not by your laws, but by our will. And we stand here today to tell you this: we do not seek your seat, nor your approval. We seek only freedom, and we will never kneel again. The Council erupted. Arrogance, thundered a reptilian lord, his scales rippling crimson. They threaten the balance, shrieked a crystalline envoy, its body refracting light into shards. Strike them down before they grow further, demanded another, pounding the dais. But the Chancellor raised a hand and silence fell, his many eyes fixed on Velan. You speak boldly, exile, but boldness does not grant you dominion. Why come here if not to beg for re-entry? Why reveal your fleets if not to seek war? Mara's lips curved, not in amusement, but in cold certainty. We reveal ourselves because the age of hiding is over. We reveal ourselves so that the galaxy understands. We are no longer bound by your decrees. If you seek war, you will find it. But if you seek peace, you will find it on our terms, not yours. She gestured, and the screen shifted. Not warships this time, but colonies. New worlds, freshly settled. Stations rebuilt from ruins. Fleets escorting not only soldiers, but merchants, explorers, scientists. Humanity's resurgence was not only of steel and fire, but of culture, unity, life. You exiled us to wither, she said softly. We flourished instead. This is our answer. For the first time in memory, the council was speechless. Their greatest punishment had become their greatest failure. The galaxy had hoped humanity would vanish into obscurity. Instead, they had created something stronger than fear, a civilization that owed them nothing. A young envoy, one of the few who had voted against exile years ago, leaned forward. Its voice was almost reverent. You do not ask to return? Valan met its gaze. No, the council is not our future. We walk our own path now, not exiled, not subjects, free. The words struck like thunder. Around the chamber, murmurs rippled. Some voices trembled with outrage, others with awe. For in those words, countless species trapped by council decrees heard something dangerous, possibility. And then the humans turned. They left the chamber without another word, their boots echoing like war drums against the ancient stone. Behind them, the screens showed their fleet slowly turning away, slipping back into the endless dark. They had come not to conquer, not to beg, but to declare. The Chancellor sat frozen, his many eyes unblinking. For the first time in centuries, the Council no longer looked unchallenged. Far from that chamber, aboard the flagship Odyssey, Mara Valan stood at the viewport. Stars stretched before her, infinite and unclaimed. The human fleet moved in silence. Around her, ships gliding like shadows across the void. Her aide approached quietly. They will fear us now. They already did, Valan replied. But fear is not our legacy. We are not here to be their monsters. We are here to be something more, to chart what lies beyond their reach. The aide frowned. And if they come after us? Valan's gaze lingered on the endless stars. Then they will learn what exile truly created. And so humanity left the chambers of power behind, their declaration echoing across the stars. They would not return to chains, nor bow to decrees. Their fleets carved new paths through the void. Their colonies flourished on forgotten worlds. Their children grew beneath unfamiliar skies. The galaxy watched with awe and dread, unable to decide if humanity was its doom or its salvation. But to humanity, it did not matter. They had forged something greater than acceptance. They had forged freedom. Exiled, they had found unity. Forsaken, they had built strength. Rejected, they had discovered destiny. And as their ships vanished into the dark beyond, one truth remained certain. The galaxy had voted to exile Earth, but humanity had chosen to forge its own path.